Welcome back to our continuing coverage on Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated. I'm Brendan Gulick, and we're pleased to be joined by former NFL and college head coach Jim Mora Jr., who's going to chat with us a little bit about a number of different Ohio State-related topics. Jim, thanks for your time here this morning. Appreciate you coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Brendan. I always like talking Ohio State football.
Well, it's certainly a fun topic, not just in Columbus, but nationwide. Why don't we start with the hottest topic of them all, Justin Fields. You know, the Buckeyes, it's no secret they've had some terrific quarterbacks in the Big Ten the last decade for sure. But for whatever reason, a lot of those guys haven't translated to the NFL game quite as well as they've succeeded at the collegiate level. What do you think Justin Fields has in terms of his ability that might help him break that trend?
I think that his dual threat ability, and, when you look at him statistically, he's off the charts. Everything he does at a high level. You're talking about a 6'2.5", 6'3", 230-pound man who's a great decision maker. And, the indicators that I look at when I think about what a great decision maker at quarterback is does he protect the football? And I look at a touchdown to interception ratio, and this guy's off the charts. I mean, he does a great job throwing it where he's supposed to throw it, when he's supposed to throw it, and keeping it away from the defense. He ended up with 9 interceptions, which to me was surprising when I watched him play. I think there's a couple flurries in there. We threw some picks, but when you look at this guy play, he just does a great job with the football. You look at today's NFL game, and they have followed, in my opinion, they've followed the path of the college game in terms of quarterback play. The most successful, except for Tom Brady, quarterbacks in the NFL seem to be guys that can get out of the pocket and make plays either with their arm and their feet. When you look at Justin Fields, you look at a guy that, in my opinion, escaped the pocket. He can remain a threat as a passer with the ball. He can throw accurately on the move, whether he's moving to his right or his left. He has the ability when he's moving to his left to get his body squared up and throw with accuracy. But he's also a threat to run the ball at all times. And so he puts linebackers in conflict in the open field. And so many of the plays now, pass plays, are plays that have kind of the pockets broken down or the design plays to get outside. And I think he excels in that area. He's not a guy you really want to tackle, but as an NFL quarterback, he's not a guy you want to see get tackled. And I think he's smart with his body. I think he knows when to get down and when to take people on. In the NFL, he'll certainly be encouraged to take care of his body much more than take people on. And then Brendan, what I like, he's a winner. He's 20-2. He has never lost a Big Ten football game. I mean, that's an intangible that just speaks volumes about this young man, because Ohio State every week is the biggest game on their opponent's schedule, and yet he finds a way to excel. And I could go on and on about him. I love his demeanor. I love the leadership. I love the selflessness. I love that he's not a boastful guy. I love the athletic arrogance that he shows on the field. He's not an arrogant guy, but he's just, if I'm a teammate of his, I said, I can count on this guy right here. So I think he's got everything you want to be a great NFL player in this day and age.
Well, to your point, he had more touchdowns. He was responsible for more touchdowns than he had thrown incomplete passes, let alone interceptions, through the first few games of the season. He makes great decisions, and obviously Buckeye Nation's going to miss him. But I think Ohio State fans expect that he's going to make an NFL team awfully happy. How about on maybe the expanded version or expanded look here of the first round? Wyatt Davis and Shaun Wade for quite a while have been projected first-round talent, and very well might still be, but it seems like they're dropping down draft boards a little bit. How many Buckeyes do you think are going to fall into the first round, and will Wyatt Davis and Shaun Wade be selected on night one?
I think Shaun Wade will. I think it speaks volumes that he came back to prove that he could play outside. And, as a corner, you're never going to be perfect. You're going to get beat. There's going to be some things, but you're talking about a physical specimen. He's got the measurables that you're looking for to play corner. The fact that he has played inside a lot is attractive to NFL teams. So often in the NFL, teams will try to get that mismatch in the slot. And I think that, Shaun having a lot of experience there is very helpful. with Wyatt. Wyatt's a man that's from Southern California, so I recruited him. Actually, kind of lived in the same neighborhood as him. Was devastated when he went to Ohio State, but continued to follow his career. When he opted back in, I thought that was a great decision for him just to get more reps. But that offensive guard position isn't a position that we see a lot of guys drafted at early. I think he's a big, physical, tough, smart. He can run, block, he can protect. I think he's one of the best interior offensive linemen for sure in this year's draft. So I don't know that he's a first-round pick. I mean, skill set wise, he's a first-round pick, but value, not sure that he is. But he'll certainly be an impact player in the NFL for a long, long time.
Well, let me press you on Shaun Wade a little bit, because he certainly excelled at the inside slot corner. But there are plays that stick out in fans' minds from this past year where he got beat on the outside, and I think you can chalk up so many different things to that. He certainly didn't have the reps, he didn't have the regular camp, didn't have some of maybe the early season games to kind of get into a rhythm. But what did you see from him from that outside corner spot that, if you're an NFL scout or GM or coach evaluating him, that makes you think, hey, this guy can make the jump and play outside corner at the next level?
Well, I'll go back to some of the plays that you're talking about, where he looked a little bit out of position or a little bit awkward, or maybe had been a little bit. I think Shaun has so much confidence in his ability that at times he would guess. At times he might try to bait people. At times maybe he was just a little bit unsure because, as you said, he hasn't had as many reps out there. But I look at the measurables. I look at a long, tall guy who can run, who does have confidence, and I think he is around the ball. I think that's so important for a corner. Oftentimes, you'll see a corner that puts himself in great position, but for some reason, the receiver always ends up with the ball in his hands rather than the corner who is in great position. I think that the more reps he gets, the better he'll be. But, we're playing so much nickel defense now in the NFL. There's multiple. It's very seldom do you see just two receivers on the field. The other thing, you'll see these tight ends now that are really just gigantic receivers. And I think Shaun can match up to those guys. So I wouldn't be so concerned with just labeling him a corner. He's a really good defensive back with a lot of versatility, and I like that about him. I like that a lot.
Well, he certainly drew some tough matchups this year. I think Ohio State's secondary coming into the year was one of the bigger question marks. He was the only, rock solid returner, and he basically drew the best receiver that Ohio State played on any given week. So I'm sure that was part of the reason for some of the challenges he had. I want to move to the linebacker spot, where Ohio State was perhaps more deep at that position than any other position, certainly on the defense. There are four linebackers that certainly think they could go in the NFL draft. Pete Werner, Tuff Borland, Justin Hilliard, and Baron Browning, who I think has a really high ceiling. Who of those four do you like the most in terms of their projectability?
Well, I like them all. Ohio State has a pretty storied history of, having great linebackers. Maybe not, I know Penn State calls themselves linebacker U, and we had some pretty good ones at UCLA, but I like Baron Browning. You talk about his ceiling. That's what I like. You're talking about, a 6'3", 240-pound plus guy who is very versatile. You the passer. He can match up to tight ends and sometimes backs. He can play zone coverage. I think he showed in the Senior Bowl that he's got some pop and some strength taking on blockers and setting an edge. And I think that teams are going to look at him and they're going to say, okay, this guy, as established as he's still a little bit raw. He's still got some things that we can polish up that'll take him to the next level. And I think that's very attractive to NFL teams. The speed. Look at this is a fast league that he's getting ready to enter, and he's going to have to be able to play fast space and cover fast guys and close fast, and he can do those things, and he can do some size. Oftentimes those you don't find a guy his size that moves as gracefully as he does. at UCLA, had a really good player, ended up being the 9th pick in the draft, and just made Pro Bowls, Anthony Barr, who plays for Vikings. You look at Barron, he's got a little Anthony Barr in him. He can do a lot of things. So I like that about him. And I think he'll be the first guy off the board for in terms of those 4 linebackers.
It certainly wouldn't surprise me either. You're right. That Senior Bowl in particular, I thought he really, really impressed. Looking forward to seeing the way he progresses. Maybe bigger picture about Ohio State's program. I know you've been in and around football for a long time and can certainly recognize when there's a machine, when there's an engine that just seems to keep on rolling. Ohio State now for basically 2 decades across several different coaches. They have cemented themselves as truly one of the premier football programs in America. And they've done it because they recruit well. They've done it because they can execute well. There's so many different reasons as to why it keeps moving forward. But what impresses you the most as someone who has built a program and led a program to look at Ohio State from the outside and say, gee, I don't know how they continue to do that so well?
Well, they're in alignment. And I'm talking about the entire university. The administration is in line with the athletic department. The athletic department is in line with the football program. They have the same objectives. I think that they, over the course of time, have held themselves to incredibly high standard, and they believe in their culture. This is going to sound really silly, but I'm just going to talk about the uniform. All right, the Ohio State uniform it's an iconic uniform. The helmet is iconic. The Buckeyes are iconic, and they haven't really. Sure, they've modified, but they haven't really strayed from what always made Ohio State great, going all the way back to Woody Hayes. When I think of Ohio State, I think of discipline. I think of toughness. I think of consistency through the year. I think of that stadium always being full and the fan support. I often visited there as a pro coach to scout, and the facilities were always top notch. The excitement around the program. But I think the people at the top and the people that have succeeded the people at the top through the years have always maintained a certain standard of excellence. It's very evident when you walk through that building what they're about. They're winning. They're about integrity. They're about morals. They're about graduating their players. They're about creating success. And if you're a young, impressionable high school player, that's a place where you want to be, because and your parents know that if you get your degree from Ohio State, you've got credibility. If you get drafted as a football player from Ohio State, there's a really good that you're going to make it in the NFL because you've been trained well. And I think one of the things that has really transformed for them is the way they've been able to recruit skill position play and develop them. Like I said, I think back to Ohio State. In the past, I never thought about skill position players. Now I think about skill position players. And maybe I was wrong not to, but now I think about, Chris Olave, and I think about Justin Fields, and I think about, the great running backs, Zeke Elliott and Sean Springs. And, I coached Ahmad Plummer a long, long time ago, and he came to the NFL as a corner, and he was ready to go. They get their guys ready to go.
Well, it's certainly been fun to watch this whole program continue year after year to keep on churning out great talent, to have coaches that know how to coach that talent, and to make the most out of what they have on any given roster. Jim, appreciate your time very much. We'll look forward to visiting again with you soon.
Thank you, Brandon.